Hi, second graders. Today I have a story called Oil Spill. And this is another book that is based on something that really happened. And so as I read this to you today, I want you to think about cause and effect. Because this oil spill happened, what were some of the effects? In other words, what was the result from this oil spill? So we're going to read about this event and we're going to learn about reasons why things like this happen and what we can do to help prevent it. This is a very well-loved book, and I kind of laughed because look how I had to kind of tape this book together. So I really hope it doesn't fall apart throughout my video. So here we go. The night of March 24th, 1989 was dark and cold. A huge black oil tanker glided out on the port of Valdez, Alaska. Painted on its bow was its name, Exxon Valdez. The Exxon Valdez floated low in the water. About 50 million gallons of crude oil weighed it down. So think about a gallon of milk. Can you see the ship? Think about a gallon of milk and how heavy that is. This was carrying 50 million gallons of oil. That's why they move so slowly. That's why they're flat on the water like that. The huge tanker slowly sailed out into Prince William Sound. And then suddenly it happened. Crunch. The ship slammed into an underwater reef. Thick black oil flowed out of the Exxon Valdez smashed tanks, and it poured into the dark waters. All of this oil started to spill out. The Exxon Valdez spilled out 11 million gallons of oil. That much oil could fill over 1,000 big swimming pools. So I want you to think about the size of a swimming pool. Fill that with oil. About 1,000 of those swimming pools filled with oil is what spilled into the water. The sticky oil soon covered 11,000 square miles of ocean water. That is an area as big as the state of Maryland. It damaged about 1,250 miles of Alaska's coastline. That is longer than the entire Atlantic coast of the United States. I'm going to hold this book up. This is a map of Alaska. And everywhere where you see this dark black, that is where the oil spill spread. So it spread for many, many miles along the coast, over 1,000 miles along the coast. True story. The oil stuck to the feathers of many ducks, geese, and other seabirds. The birds couldn't swim or fly, and over 300,000 died. They were covered with oil. Oil got into the bodies of fish, shrimp, and crabs. No one knows how many of them were killed. Sea otters, sea lions, harbor seals, and killer whales all swallowed the oil. They breathed in the poisonous fumes, and their bodies were coated with oil. Thousands of these marine animals died. The spill from the Exxon Valdez was one of the worst in our country's history. But sadly, it's not the only one. An oil spill occurs somewhere in the world almost every day of the year. Now, not a spill this bad, but boys and girls, these oil spills are sadly common. So what causes them? Let's talk about what could cause some of these accidents, okay? A tanker like the Exxon Valdez might run into run aground or collide with another ship. Workers sometimes make mistakes as a tanker is being loaded or unloaded. An undersea oil well can start to leak, or a tank or a pipe breaks at the shore at a shore oil terminal. Sadly, boys and girls, some oil spills occur on purpose. The tanker captain tells the workers to clean out the tanks, and sometimes they flush the old oil into the sea. The causes of oil spills differ, but the result is the same. The oil spreads out, it floats on top of the water. Experts on oil spills rush to the scene and they start to clean up the mess. But I want you to think about this, boys and girls, how hard it would be to clean up an oil spill that's happening in the water. So let's read about what some of the things they can do. Their first job is to prevent the oil from spreading. So they try to contain the oil. They put a boom around the spill. The boom is like a collar and it keeps the oil in one place. So they kind of put like a belt or a collar around that area and it keeps the oil kind of contained the best they can to that one place. For smaller spills, the experts might use a skimmer. There are several kinds of skimmers. One works like a giant vacuum cleaner. It sucks up the oil from the water. Sometimes the oil the skimmer collects can be used again, and that can sometimes happen for smaller spills. For some other small spills, experts can place special pads on top of the oil. The pads are like sponges and they soak up the oil and then they have to get rid of the soaked up oil. And again, this would have to be for obviously a much smaller spill. For larger spills, the experts might set the oil on fire. But the problem with that, as you can imagine, the fire sends smoke and gas into the air, and then it leaves ashes in the water. So it kind of causes a new problem, right? The original oil spill then now is causing another problem. Cleanup crews might also use chemicals to get rid of large oil spills. People aboard planes or boats spread the chemicals on the oil. Some chemicals break the oil into tiny bits, and then the tiny bits mix in with the water. But once again, it's kind of causing another problem, right? We've got the pollution, and then we also now have contaminated water. So that doesn't seem like a great solution. None of these seem great, right? It's a big problem. Other chemicals might make the oil come together. The oil forms a layer, like a sheet of rubber. One type of skimmer lifts the sheet of oil and the oily debris out of the water. Chemicals make the oil less harmful, but they do add poisons to the water. So once again, boys and girls, we're solving one problem, but kind of creating another problem. So any way you look at it, these are very difficult. In time, the oil from most spills will drift up onto the shore. Scientists spray the rocks and sand with hot water to wash the oil back into the sea. But the hot spray may also push the oil farther into the rocks and sand. Here, the oil can harm plants and animals that live on the shore. Scientists sometimes add bacteria to the oil along the shore. That bacteria will eat the oil and change it into a harmless substance. But it would take huge amounts of bacteria to get rid of a big oil spill. And you can see this worker trying to clean the rocks and the shore that's covered with oil. Sometimes the experts decide that no action is the best action to treat an oil spill. The wind and waves will mix the oil and water together. It's like mixing oil and vinegar to make a salad dressing, but in time, much of the oil disappears. Oil spills are major disasters. Slowly, scientists are learning how to clean them up, and they are learning how to prevent spills. How can we prevent oil spills too? Kind of an interesting question. So one of the ways that we can reduce, even though we're not out, spilling ocean into the water, boys and girls, if we use less oil, there will be less oil tankers in the ocean. And if there's less oil tankers, then there's less of a chance for a spill. One way that we can use less oil is to use less electricity. We could also use less gasoline, which I know a lot of us are doing right now, right? I'm hardly using my car at all. And the other things we can do is kind of what the gal in A River Ran Wild did, and she tried to work with Congress and try to get some different regulations on ships and oil tankers and things like that, making her voice heard, making your voice heard. So obviously, the big problem in this story is the oil spill. In this particular case, what was the cause of the oil spill? What happened to the tanker that created the oil spill? And then I want you to go one step further and I want you to think, because of the oil spill, what were some of the effects? I want you to think about the animals and think about the shoreline and think about all of the different effects of an oil spill. Cause and effect, right? Things that happen have a result, cause and effect. So that's what I'd like you to respond today in your notebook or on a sheet of paper is obviously what caused this oil spill and what were some of the effects, okay? And you just might have a question about that on your Google form today too. Tomorrow we're going to read about another problem, and tomorrow you are going to respond to cause and effect. So practice it today, and we will read another story tomorrow. Okay? Thank you for listening. Have a great afternoon, boys and girls, as you finish up your work today. See you next time.